Hello, guys. It looks like we are live. I'd like to thank you all for coming to my senior graphic design exhibit. And let me go right into it. So my exhibit is titled Play Like a Girl. And this is all the work that I've created as a senior here at Doane University. Now, just a little bit about me. My name's Amanda Insalaco, and I'm originally from Utah. And what brought me out to Doane University was not only the graphic design program, but also softball. I've been playing softball for over 7 years now, and it's I love it. It's truly a passion. And so when I got to decide what I wanted to do for my senior work, I really wanted to do something about softball. And so for my exhibit, I created the foundation, a nonprofit foundation called Home to Home, to really promote the game of softball. So this link, this presentation, will be available at the end of this live video, and you can get it and go through it if you want to look at the pieces again. So the first thing, just a little bit about the show. It is about Home to Home, which is a nonprofit organization. And the reason why I wanted to create this foundation and do all the design work behind it is because softball has kind of not been in the spotlight, not gotten a lot of attention. Softball was included in the Olympics in 1996, but it's been taken out of the Olympics, which is such a bummer. The Tokyo Olympics this summer will have softball, but after that, it's once again going to be out of it. And that's such a bummer because there's millions of young girls to collegiate athletes that play this sport and love this sport. And I wanted to create something that would not only showcase the rich history that softball has, but also showcase the unique jargon that it has, as well as the Hall of Fame players, the best to ever play the game. So the first thing that I created was a motion graphic about the timeline, the history of softball. So we'll go ahead and watch that right now. So that was the enemy timeline that I created. If you, after the exhibit, if you go on Facebook, you can go see it in full screen. I know that it's a little small in this gallery. Then the next thing I wanted to create was an infographic about all of the different positions in softball. Now softball, there's 9 defensive positions, as well as the offensive side, but I wanted to create a pictogram for every single position. And the way that I chose the different action that each of the players are, each of the pictograms are in, was by looking at several different photos and trying to see what exactly, when you think of like, okay, the pitcher, what action do you think of when you do see a pitcher that would exhibit what they do the best. So this is 16 by 24. It's a digital print where you can see all of them on the field, and then as well as all the all the infographics down below, a little bit about what the position does. And then also in softball, each position has a number. So it goes down, the pitcher's first and the right fielder's 9, and it goes through the entire field. Each of the players have a number, and so that's what the numbers behind the pictograms are. The next thing that I wanted to create was a Hall of Fame series poster. So take the very best at every single position and create a poster that displayed their best statistics, where they played, and why they will forever be immortalized as one of the best ever play that position. So I started off, and in the gallery, you can see there's all 9 here. And we'll go through each one of them one by one. So the first one is the pitcher. And so for the pitcher position, I chose Jenny Finch. She is synonymous with softball. When you think of softball, people who aren't involved in the sport most likely are to say Jenny Finch when they think of a player. She played for the Olympic team and won a gold medal and a silver medal. And she also broke several records at the University of Arizona. But she's known as being the first female pitcher to ever pitch 70 miles an hour. Now, a lot of people who are involved with baseball might think 70 miles per hour is not that much, because in baseball, people throw up to 100 or 102 even. But the softball mound is a lot closer to home plate. So throwing 70 miles an hour is equivalent to throwing 100 miles an hour in baseball. So that's pretty impressive that she was able to do that. And since then, other pitchers have. But she was the first one to throw 70 miles per hour. And then she's also known for striking out Major League Baseball players. They had this show, and she would try to go they would try to hit off of her, but she would strike them all out on the rise ball and make even these pro $1 million athletes look stupid as they're like swinging at her rise ball. So she is pretty famous for that. The next one that I did was Aubrey Monroe for the catcher. And she holds several Olympic titles for throwing people out, and then was also an incredible hitter. She had over 100 hits in her college career, which is really impressive. And she also won the national champion for her University of Florida. For first base, I chose Lauren Chamberlain because she's the most decorated first baseman. She played pro ball for a couple of years, as long as playing for the University of Oklahoma. And I really wanted to showcase her records. She has 95 home runs. That's a national collegiate record that isn't going to be broken anytime soon, because that is a crazy amount of home runs to have. And she also had a slugging percentage of 960. So those of you who aren't familiar with slugging percentages, it's to determine how many extra base hits you're getting per at bat. So having 960 is really incredible. Then for second base, I chose Sierra Romero because once again, she was extremely decorated. On the collegiate side, she won 3 times, was an All-American. And she was also several times the Big Ten Player of the Year. And she was even named the 2015 ESPN Player of the Year. Then for third base, I chose Casey Cooper, also because of a lot of the records that she has. One to point out is just her RBI. She had 270 RBI. So even though she doesn't have as many home runs as some of the other people, which 67 is still a really impressive number, the RBIs also speaks volume. An RBI is when your hit scores another person. And so this takes like a lot of sacrifice to have situational hitting, to get runners scored, which is the main job of a hitter. So having 270 really exemplifies what an amazing hitter she was. For shortstop, I chose Dot Richardson. She's one of the most iconic players. She is showcased on my poster for the exhibit. She was known to have a very loud, expressive attitude, and was able to get a lot of people interested in softball. She played in the Olympics when the first softball was first included, and won gold twice. And she was known to be explosive on the base path, and then also be an ambassador for softball, bringing it to a lot of communities and talking about softball and getting more girls into playing the sport. For left field, I chose Haley McClenny because she's known to make ESPN catches, whether that's playing for her university or for the U.S. national team. She's been on ESPN so many times because she goes all out for every single ball. That's helped her be a 2-time world champion and also be named to the 2020 Olympic rosters. So she'll be playing for the U.S. team in this upcoming Olympics. For center field, I chose Jessica Mendoza. She is known to be such a leader in the outfield. She played for the U.S. as well as for Stanford University. What's really amazing, though, is what she did after her career. She was at the forefront of softball, and also got into baseball, and she was the first female MLB broadcaster for ESPN and broke one of those gender barriers. And even now, people are always looking at her as such a role model for other women going into broadcasting. For right field, I chose Caitlin Lowe. She not only was an amazing fielder, but she was super smart on the base path. One of the main things that people talk about is outfielders have to be so fast, and she really showcases this like speed and quickness in the outfield as well as on the base path. She holds several records at her university of stolen bases and getting a triple, which is extremely hard in softball because at the collegiate level, all the outfielders are really fast. So be able to beat the throw to get from home to third is quite amazing. So that's why she's was chosen to represent right field in the Hall of Fame. So then the next thing I wanted to showcase is the unique jargon that softball has. Now, every single sport has words or phrases that don't really make sense unless you're playing the sport, but I really feel like softball has more than any other sport. And this unique vernacular is really, you wouldn't really understand it unless you played, and it makes softball so unique. So some of these include like cannon arm, which is, how fast someone throws, if they have a really good arm. But even some of the other ones like sacrifice fly, like when you think of that, it doesn't really make sense. But then if you are looking at in softball, then it makes total sense. So a sacrifice fly is when the batter pops it up in order to score a run. So I created an infographic that has each of the little icons that I created for each of the different phrases, along with the definitions. So we'll take a closer look at those because I also created little animations for each one to not only showcase the graphic, but then how it would be in motion. So the first one is ace pitcher. This is your number one pitcher on the team. She throws heat. She's super accurate. On the Dome softball team, this definitely would be Josie. An ace pitcher is definitely someone who is a leader on the team. That's what an ace pitcher is. Around the horn, if you just think about that, it probably would make a lot of sense. People might go straight to like band or something. But around the horn is after a batter strikes out, the defensive team the catcher will throw the ball to all the infielders. This is called around the horn. It's a way to celebrate a strikeout by your pitcher. Another one is backdoor play. So backdoor play is when you catch a girl off the bag too much. There's a lot of trick plays in softball, which makes it so unique, which I really like. Another one is cannon of an arm. So this is when someone has a super strong throw. They don't actually have a cannon, but they are super accurate. They throw hard. So you'll have a lot of people talking about outfielders having a cannon of an arm when they throw out someone trying to advance to home, or a third baseman running up and having a cannon as they throw out someone who tried to bunt. The next one is can of corn. This is, you don't really hear this phrase on the coast, but definitely in the Midwest, you'll hear this phrase. And can of corn just means it was a super easy play. It was a can of corn. The next one is crow hop. A crow hop has nothing involved with birds. It's mainly used in the outfield. So when an outfielder receives a ball, they will hop. So they will use their legs to get even more velocity on their ball. And so I don't even know why it's called a crow hop, because you don't jump upwards, you like fly straight in the air, but it's called a crow hop. The next one, a lot of people will say diamonds are girls' best friend, and for a softball player, it's definitely true. Diamonds, but when you say diamond to a softball player, they're not thinking of the rare, expensive gems. They're thinking of the dirt and being dirty, and really just the 3 bags out and home plate. And so this diamond isn't as elegant, but it definitely means as much or more to a softball player. The next one is sacrifice fly. So as I was talking before, when a batter hits it super high, it's called a fly ball. But when there's a runner on third, a really great batter will have situational hitting and hit it super high and super far to allow the base runner to tag up and score. And so that's what a sacrifice fly is. The next one is hot corners. So this is third and first. It's called hot corners because the batter, they're super close to home plate, and the batter will hit the ball hardest to them. So they, especially on like bunt defense, they might only be like 40 feet away from home plate, and the ball's coming off the bat 70, 80 miles an hour. So it's called hot corners because they have to react so fast. And sometimes it feels like it's a hot corner. The next one is married to the bag. This you tell this to someone who has super, super short leadoffs. They don't really get off. Because when the pitcher pitches the ball, a softball player can get off the bag. But if they're married to the bag, they stay like 1 foot next to it instead of getting a good lead of like 5 or 6 feet. The next one is a snow cone catch. So this is when you just barely catch the softball. It's on the tip of your mitt. And when you hold it up, it looks like a snow cone. So that's where that word comes along, the snow cone catch, because you just barely caught it. The next one is windmill. This is pretty explanatory. It's the motion that a pitcher makes when they're pitching. It's their windmill. So it has nothing to do with wind power. It's just their pitching motion. So then the next thing that I wanted to create was a style guide for this entire system. So I'll go ahead and go to it. When you click on the style guide, you can go to issue, which has the virtual book there. So let me go and go there. So this is the style guide. A style guide is something that you present to people who want to use the brand, so that way they use it correctly. And it also explains some of the design decisions of everything. So the Home to Home's mission statement is to promote the game of softball, recruit the next generation of players, inspire athletes by introducing them to softball's rich history, intrinsic values, unique jargon, and Hall of Fame players. So personally for me, the most important icon of softball is home plate. That is where you start your at bat, and that is where you score to win. It's more than just a rubber base. It means a lot to everyone who plays the game. So I wanted to incorporate the home base as much as possible throughout my entire design decisions. So to create the logo, I first took the home plate and then I flipped it up. So then you have 2 home plates and staked a 2 around it to get the 2. Then also I wanted to have the 2 home plates to represent a time because you have home to home is not only when you start an at bat, like you start at home and you go to home. It's also when softball you get timed, so you might go home to first time to give to coaches, and then you also time yourself going home to home, and that time you like give to coaches when you're getting recruited or just trying to get better. And so I also wanted to recognize that in the logo. And then also home is also seen as like a second home for a lot of players. It's a way to escape some things that are going on. It's another way to express yourself. And so this is a second home to a lot of players. So that's another reason why it's called home to home. To create the home, I took the base and then used only the lines and the angles from those 2 bases to create the H, and then put it on either side of the home to home. So the 2 starts with one home and leads your eye to the second home. So then I created the full logo and then also the what it would look in grayscale if it's ever needed in grayscale, and then also what it looks against a red background since the home is in red. So when it goes to red, the home just goes to white. So it's still readable. I also created a secondary logo to use when the actual logo is smaller than 1.5 inches. You can use the secondary logo, which is shown down here at the bottom, which it just has the H's to represent the home. And then also in design, you don't want anything too close to your logo. You want your logo to be able to stand by itself so that people can read it, can recognize it, so that you can very clearly see it. So to do this, I implemented a safety box. So using the O from the home, you take that and you go all around the logo, and that is the closest any other imagery or text can go to the logo. That way, when anybody else is using this logo, they don't put text anywhere too close. So the home to home stands by itself. The next thing I had to decide what were the colors to use. Of course, yellow had to be one, but it's the color of the softball, and it's also bright and inviting, and it showcases the personality of softball. The next one is red to represent the laces in softball. Then I chose 3 varying colors of oranges to represent the dirt that softball's played on. The 2 blues are not only complementaries of those 3 oranges, but also represent the sky. And then you also have the green for the grass. And then 2 deep purples to also complement the other colors. For the typography, I chose to have my main font for the entire thing be Stymie. It's a font that has serif, so it's easily readable when it goes to small print. Also in big text, your eye is able to follow along. And it also is a throwback to the older style of type, which refers to how old the game is. So for the numbers, since I had already created the HOME out of the bases, I wanted to see if I could create an entire font to then incorporate into all of my designs. So using that same system of those 2 bases flipped up on each other, I created all of the other letters in the alphabet to go along, and I named this new font base font. Shown here is base font regular. Now in any type family, you'll have different types of fonts. So this is the regular, and then I also created base font bold and base font black. And you can see these being used in my infographic posters. Then the next thing that I wanted to do was create all of the pictograms for every single position. So for every single position, I went and took things like when a pitcher pitches and someone captured that, and then went through and with circles and lines drew out a pictogram of someone pitching. And I wanted to keep it super modern, so I chose to do flat vectors and then added drop shadows when it's on another color, so that every single position has the essence of pitching. So the catcher is tagging someone coming home. The first baseman is stretching out to catch the ball. The second baseman, shown here, is getting a backhand as the ball goes up the middle. The third baseman is making the long throw from third to first. The shortstop, a lot of the times they'll have to come across the middle and have a sidearm to get to first. So that's what is shown here. The left fielder is shown diving, even though all of the outfielders do dive. I chose to have the left fielder be diving, the right fielder be running and doing a shoestring catch, and the center fielder having catching a pop fly. So that is all the things that I created, and we have some time that I can answer any questions that people might have about anything, the show, the types of the artwork that I created, anything at all. I'll be happy to answer questions. So how long did I take to do all this? Thanks so much for the question, Haley. So I started this process all the way last semester in August when we came to school. However, I started out with several different ideas, and it took me some time to really focus on the exact idea I wanted to do. I came up with the idea of home to home and actually really sat down and started creating all this in November and getting everything created. So from November, I spent most of Christmas break working on this project, and then everything was finished by March 1st. And then, so it did take, I would have to say I put in at least over 100 hours working on this project, probably more, to create everything. Good question. Thanks for that question. My biggest design inspirations have to be some of the best designers out there: Paul Rand, Herb Lubalin, and Vignelli. A lot of people outside of design won't recognize those names, but they'll recognize the works that they've done. So like the PBS logo, National Geographic, the subway system in New York, things that people use every single day, these guys created. But the thing is, like, most of them are dead right now, but their work still continues to inspire people and is still being used because of the way that they created things. So one main thing that they did, most of them created flat vector shapes for their logos or their subway designs. And this allowed their designs to be timeless. So when I was creating this, I wanted something that could not only look fresh and relevant today, but something that 20 years in the future could still be used because it looks modern. And that is something that I look up to them, because their logos are still being used. Like IBM's logo was created like 60 years ago and still looks modern and still is being used. So those are some people that I look up to for design inspirations. So what I do with the foundation, I'm hoping after I graduate to actually implement this and actually have it come to and be an actual foundation where I can go around and get people involved in softball, create like a website and get people going to it and learning more, maybe having a section where there's like different drills or ways to like create practice plans, and not only like getting the name softball out there, but then also having a place where parents, players, and coaches can come and learn more about their position or the game. And so hopefully in the future, I can actually make this into a real foundation. That's a good question. I definitely don't think I could manage everything if I truly wasn't passionate, but I love softball. And so, and I love design work. And so when you mix those two together, I found ways to balance everything, because whether that was like drawing and designing on the bus as we went places for softball, or staying up super late to finish work, I just truly love softball, and that made it easier to get everything done. Great question, Aaliyah. Ooh, that's a good one. Definitely creating all of the position pictograms. Growing up, I was a utility player, so I played every single position. So, but mainly catcher and third. And so going through and finding the right position I wanted to do, and then how I wanted to draw it out, that was definitely so much fun. I have pages and pages of like different positions for each of the players, but I definitely loved creating all that. My favorite piece in the entire collection has to be the logo. I spent a lot of time creating it, really thinking of the symbolism behind it. I wanted every single part of the logo to mean something, not just be like a font with the name of the foundation, but every single element to represent something. So that's why it's not just one home plate, but it's two, because it's like home to home. So there's two home plates. It represents time to represent it makes like a timepiece because of the time home to home. And then also the one home leading to the next home represents that softball can become like a second home. So I really enjoy creating it, and it definitely took a lot of time. So that's a really great question. I knew that I was done with like the work that I wanted to be in here a couple weeks ago. Though the great thing about design is that you are never done, because this isn't like a studio art where after like it dries and like it's done. With graphic design, you can always go back and change things and always be working on it, always trying to push it one step further. So even though I'm now done with all of my exhibit, there's still things I want to like go back and change so that when I actually make this into a foundation, everything's like is pushed further design wise and everything else. Great question, Sam. So if there hadn't been a pandemic, things would definitely be a lot different. So this would have been held in Crete, Nebraska at the Raw Gallery. And so all of the pieces would have been printed. So when you see like this would actually have been printed and mounted onto a wall. And so it's 16 by 24. So on a computer screen, it's pretty tiny. You can't really read any of the words. So if this wasn't COVID and in a gallery, you could go and actually read everything. But I still don't think that takes away from any of the work. So since it was COVID, I got to design the gallery that I wanted to present in. So I actually created the gallery that you see, all of the different floors and wood using a 3D program. And so that instead of being bound to the restrictions of Raw Gallery, I could do whatever I wanted. And then another cool thing, because everything was so different this year, is that I got to invite people who live out of state, who probably wouldn't have been able to come and be able to share this with them. So everything did work out in the end, even though initially this wasn't planned to be showcased as a virtual exhibit. So going on and graduating, I'm hoping to get a job where I get to work with the identity systems of different companies. Like I said before, I really truly loved creating the logo for this exhibit, and I really want to keep working on that in the future. I love getting to really sit down and think about what makes a piece great. And so for any type of company, you want the logo to be able to stand out, to when people pass by it, they know what it is. Like everybody can recognize the McDonald's logo. Everyone can recognize like Apple's logo. And so I want to, in the future, be able to do that for other companies, create something that's memorable, that truly represent what the company is in one little simple image. So that's something that I hope to be able to work on in the future. So since we do have a little bit of time, I know the first time that I showed this, it was super, super small. So I'm going to go ahead and share the video in full screen. That way people can read the text and showcase that in full screen. wanted to stop it right there. You'll notice in this picture, so this is a picture of the UCLA team winning. I specifically wanted to choose this picture because you'll see a lot of Olympians that will go on to win several gold medals in this picture. I think it's so crazy that not only did they win the national championship, which there's a lot of other teams represented, but from this one specific team, there ended up being several Olympians too. There we go. So yeah, that was just in case it's the first time you weren't able to read everything. Looks like we have some time for a couple more questions, and the link to this, the actual gallery where you can go through and click at your own pace and click on any of the posters and see more about it, has now been shared. So, and afterwards, if you want to go through and see the work again, feel free to do that. Thanks, Josie. I was really thinking of you when I made the Jenny Finch poster and all of the other amazing pictures we have at Doan. So in terms of like artists and designers, definitely the ones that I briefly talked about before. The main thing when I'm looking for inspiration for different things is not only look at the modern stuff that's out there today. So specifically these posters were directly influenced by all of the different Instagram type of posters that MLB puts out. And if you look at any team's Instagram account, like the Dodgers, they are all super stylized and designed. And so specifically for these, I was influenced by like trading cards for baseball, how they have a really great image of the person in action, then they have like the position, and then another picture of them. And I kind of took those same elements, but put my own spin on them to showcase softball. And then really wanted and really looked at other modern influences like even the NFL, their Instagram models of like how they make the images pop by having them come out of the background, but still have the background there. So those are some of the things that I was inspired by to make these posters. So in graphic design, I definitely love to do stuff in Illustrator, specifically making vectors. Even though I do enjoy Photoshop and manipulating photos, like these posters, I really love creating icons. That's one of the things I most love about graphic design, besides logo creation, is making icons. So whether it's like the pictograms of the positions, or creating the icons for the different unique jargon, making vector-based graphics is always super fun. And the way that in the design world, making a vector means that you can blow it up to be the size of a billboard, or design it so that it can be as small as an inch and be like on a hat. And I think that creates some unique problems that a graphic designer has to figure out. And I really like doing that. So that's one of the things I really enjoy about graphic design. So I started playing softball when I was 12, but I knew I wanted to be a graphic designer when I was 8. So before I even started playing softball, I job shadowed my dad, but I ended up spending like not a single minute at his desk. I ended up spending the entire day at one of his coworkers who was a graphic designer. And I just fell in love. I just fell in love with graphic design. And I was 8 years old, and I said to my dad, like, I want to do this. It was so cool. I remember sitting at the graphic designer's desk, and on his wall was like a mood board, and his ideas drawn out. And then he also like had something that he had just finished. And it was so cool to look at from the entire process of how it's so creative and fluid. And so that's definitely shaped me growing up, knowing what I wanted to do from such an early age, and definitely has helped me know what I wanted to major in college, and not having to like spend a year like trying to figure out stuff, because I've always known I wanted to be a graphic designer. So we have about 10 minutes left. I'll keep taking questions as they come in. But I guess I can like go in a little bit deeper about how I designed each of these posters. So the main thing that I wanted to get across of these was the action of what each of these people are doing. So for example, the picture, Jenny Finch is in the middle of doing her windmill. And so in order to make that pop, I took the person out of the background and then just muted the background in Photoshop. So you can still see like the other player running through first and the back of the backstop, but the actual person just pops. And then one of the things that I've seen going around the design world is how like letters and names interact with the players to make things more dynamic. And so that's why you see all of the different names not just be straight. They're on an angle with the where the action's going, and they're interacting with each of the players. And then that's a good question, Michaela. So when I start each part of the exhibit, if you think of the end goal, it's like really hard to actually put stuff down on paper. But I started like sketching out ideas and think about what I want my viewers to get from the piece. So like for these, for example, I want them to know who the player was, what they did, and a shot of them. And so then once I like decide those, then I can go from there and make my posters or those pictograms. But instead of like thinking, okay, I want this amazing cool thing and going from there and working backwards, I found it super helpful to start small and think of, okay, so when I present this, what do I want people to notice first? And then designing that. Okay, what do I want people to notice second? So that each person, when they see this, will go through the poster and see the same things. So to create the motion graphics, I started off creating all of these little icons. And so I created each of these in Illustrator and then I put them all on different layers. So for example, like the snow cone. The snow cone's a layer, and then the ball's a layer. And then what I did is then I took that Illustrator file and I went over into After Effects and then animated these out frame by frame to get the effect. So when I was creating the actual pictograms, I had to think about how I wanted them in motion to first create them. So for example, the cannon, I wanted it to move in and out. So in order to do that, I need to make sure that the wheel wasn't touching the cannon, because otherwise how would it like move? So I had to think about that. And then I had to think about like, okay, so when you pitch a ball, like where do you hold the ball? And I wanted to make sure that the ball resembled where a pitcher holds a ball, and then the way that it spun coming out of her hand. And then also like for the diamond, I really thought about how I wanted to present it before I even started making the flat image of coming in by drawing it and having the other image flip over like it's in a mirror. But I definitely had a lot of fun creating these. And I really like creating little motion graphics. I think they're a lot of fun. Definitely the people in it. There's a lot of graphic design programs all across the country, but I'm so glad that I picked Doane because of the amazing professors that we have here at Doane, and the amazing people that will continue to push you, continue to critique your work, to tell you when it's great and tell you when it's not. And then also to not only just be friends in the classroom, but friends outside. And so the Doane graphic design program is super special because every single person in the program is super close. And it's really given me an opportunity to really grow as a graphic designer and as a person. So for the color palette, you'll notice that all the pictograms have a lighter color. I used more of the oranges in the pictograms, but for the posters, I wanted them to be super dramatic. So I chose dramatic colors that would like really make the action pop. So instead of using like an orange or yellow, I chose deep blues and reds so that it had more of a cinematic feel than just like a cheery feel, to like really make these look like dramatic baseball cards. So that's kind of the process that I went through to create the different colors. And you'll also notice that careful attention was placed so that each of the colors popped against each other. So even though over here the numbers might be in blue, they changed to pink so that they stand out against the background. So little things like that, when you're choosing colors for a poster to make sure that everything pops, is super important. So for the 3D environment that I posted all the pictures in, I used a program called Adobe Dimension, and in it, it's a way that you can like put together different 3D elements together and then put different materials on it. So I like put together rectangles because that's what walls are basically, are just rectangles. But then I made sure that, you know, the material for the ground was wood and that it matched. All of the wood was the same wood, and then the walls, I chose they made it look most like what a wall would be and what a ceiling would be. and then went through and chose the lighting that you would have in a gallery, and then rendered it out and then put it in my exhibit. So that's about all the time that we have for this exhibit. I just want to say thank you so much for all the support, for everyone to come and watch this. Everybody who had comments, thank you guys so much. I really do appreciate all of your support, and especially to all of the friends, families, peers, and softball teammates. Thank you guys so much. And that is my exhibit. Thank you guys so much.